Hi there, this is Jonathan Herps, and welcome back to my Stories of Scale podcast. In the podcast, I chat with business owners and CEOs of scaling companies. It centers around their entrepreneurial journey so far and their aspirations for the companies and themselves. Today, it's my great pleasure to introduce Parth Gulati. I hope I've got that right, Parth,
We
um,
have.
who's the founder of Gather. So welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, Jonathan.
Look, it's my pleasure. I'm really looking forward to our conversation. So maybe if we could just jump straight in, tell us a bit about your origin story, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I think there's 2 points, two things that really stick out to me. The first one is I've been like obsessed with art and technology and how they connect ever since I was a kid, ever since I can remember. I remember when I was little as a kid, my mum used to take me to art class, like visual art, and then after schools, and then straight after that, I would go to HTML dev classes. And
Okay.
so I think, I don't know, maybe it's because of that, but as a result of it, I have been very obsessed by the intersections of those things. This is like in the sort of early mid 2000s, late 90s. And so, because when we first got a computer, it was like dial up and it became my digital canvas of sorts. And so that's one thing I really remember that sort of shaped, I think, from very early days, what I do and how I do it today. And then the other thing is I used to just love tinkering with toys. As in I would every time I got a toy, I would take it apart, put it back together. I don't know. I just like somehow was always obsessed and fascinated by what's on the inside of this thing. And yeah, those are like a couple of very formative memories that come to mind that still shape, I think, today
Okay.
my obsession with technology and kind of design. I guess we less art, more design, and we can talk about what is what, but it's some expression in visually of a point of view. And the other thing is that I grew up around business owners. So my dad, my mom, my sister, all of them are business owners. Like they have separate individual businesses. And ever since I can remember, they've had those businesses. My dad specific in particular, and my mom as well. So I think like from when I was little, I've seen the journey, the ups, the downs, the both the good bits, the hard bits. And they don't scare me. I was like on another conversation and someone was asking me, like, how did you take the jump from being an employee? And I was like, actually, like the business is being in business is more natural in a way to me. That was the anomaly, like working for someone else. And yeah, it's in a lot of ways the main thing that I feel closer to. So yeah, those are like some of the things that I would say form the origins of my thinking.
Okay. Thank you. So
Yeah.
tell me, what are you currently working on?
Yeah, so as you mentioned at the beginning, I'm one of the co-founders of Gather Wealth. We are building the all-in-one platform for wealth. And the problem we're trying to solve is that right now, like the wealth building journey for most people throughout life is a very fragmented experience. So information, actions around your wealth and money are very scattered all over the place. And generally, if you like think about how you interact with, because it's not like an individual journey, right? There's other people involved in helping you grow your wealth and manage your money. It's impossible to coordinate with the individuals and people that are involved in that journey in a seamless way. So I'm talking about people, including your partner or your family, right? Then coordinating the household and their wealth, but also beyond that, the professionals that help you. It could be a broker, an accountant, an advisor, a lawyer, solicitor. What we're trying to do is, I guess, create a new home or a new front door for money, a single place for all of your wealth, and also the people that interact with it seamlessly together. So again, as I said, your partner, right? So in your household, having a single view or a single place for everything to do with your wealth, so you can act from a shared place and you can act with confidence, because if you're not clear where you stand, it's very hard to make a decision on where should we go. But also your broker, your accountant, all the professionals that help you throughout your life in your wealth building journey, we're trying to bring all of that together, so the information, the actions, but also the people. And that's actually why it's called Gather, because it's all of it together.
Okay. So let's
Yeah.
let's step back a little bit. So I had a quick
Mm,
look at
mm,
Gather before I jumped on. So
mm,
it looks to me, and I haven't got into as much of the detail as you just explained, but
mm,
at a high level, it looks as though Gather is gathering all of your financial information from
mm.
banks, from wherever,
That's right.
into one app so that you can actually
Yep.
see what's going on. Is that right?
So that's the starting point. right? It's like you can't change what you can't see, and you have to start with being able to see clearly, and that is where we're at. And please keep going. You were going to say anything else?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask, and from what I could see, it had
Mm.
your bank accounts. There's a up-to-date valuation on your property. There is, how far does this go?
Mm. Yeah, so I think there's a today answer, and there is the answer for, I guess, whenever it is we're done, which will be never, but a longer term answer. Just so you know, we're still in a lot of ways in public beta. So we only launched the app in January this year, and we came out of like an invite only phase in May. So it's still very early days, and I just want to be transparent about that.
Yeah.
But what you can do today is you can connect more than 100 banks, as you said. So using open banking, you don't have to share username and passwords. You can also add any holdings you have across Australian, US stocks and also cryptocurrencies. And we keep that market data up to date. You can add your property and anything that doesn't fall under those. We've created actually a way for you to just add it manually and track its value, including its history over time. So we're honestly, like, even for the essentials and the foundations, we're trying to create a tool that's purpose built for this wealth, but that works on your phone. That's a really big, important point for us, because one of our personal frustrations as three co-founders, three of us, Peter, Anil, and myself, when we looked around, having worked in the financial services space for almost a decade, and we were like, everything is on mobile. Why are we finding ourselves wasting our weekends in spreadsheets trying to sort out our money? And not just that, it's like, why is it so hard to collaborate with other people on this stuff, right? Money is multiplayer by default. It's a medium of exchange. Why is it so hard to collaborate with other people that invariably need to get involved, like even someone as intimate as your partner, in the days that we live in, where like collaboration in most tools is really seamless, right? You think about Google Docs across even the Microsoft suite of things. So I think like those are the personal pace places from where we're coming. And the long arc is there's like certain assets that are not supported. Over time, we will support them that are like that auto sync. And there's a lot for us to build still, even this C bucket, and certainly in the collaboration bucket. Like we haven't really even gotten started on the collaboration yet, but I just wanted to give you a sense of the vision of where we're going.
Okay.
And so it's today and then also the longer term.
I'm going to deep dive a bit further, and if you don't mind,
Yeah,
look,
please.
in
I
a
love
past
talking about this
life-
stuff.
in a past life, I told the then managing director of the Commonwealth Bank, David Murray, that his systems were bug and he needed to fix them. And he made a comment to me, Jonathan, you think you're so effing smart, go and fix it. And the following Monday, I was transferred from deputy general manager of the private bank down to head of segmentation and the gold segment of the personal bank. So I actually, going back to 1997, 1998, I was grappling with all this then.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're obviously building links to the banks, and I'm assuming they're all secure, so we can amalgamate all of the bank details.
Yep.
I'm assuming that on property at the moment, you probably have to update value as you go.
For the moment, yes. But that's an automatable thing. We haven't gotten to it yet. You can actually get valuation data. Yeah.
Okay. So I am a non-executive director of a superannuation fund. I'm assuming at this stage you're probably adding the value that manually.
Yes, currently as well, because again, it's not covered under open banking, but there's ways to do it, and we might do it eventually. That's right.
Okay, so eventually you're going to come and hit me up for something.
I would love to. I didn't know that, Jonathan, but
yeah, no, I wish I hadn't said it now. Okay, so I'm getting a picture of how this works, and assuming your partner wants you to see her credit card details, which mine doesn't.
It's actually quite interesting. Okay, so what you just said actually even exposes a bigger truth here. So every person, and so not every individual, but also every household's money and wealth situation is unique, right?
Exactly.
So as you said, your partner might not, mine might. And so one of the founding principles and beliefs at Gather is control. As in what I mean by that is we will give you control. So the way that collaboration will work on Gather is you'll be able to actually say which parts of your accounts and transactions, etc., you want to share with a person and which you don't. Because the thing is, like, for example, you go to a lawyer for a specific topic. You don't want them to have access to everything, right? You should be able to define the parts that matter for that matter and then be able to contain it. So that's the way that this is actually a very important technical point, is that we have built Gather in a way that supports it. So it's like not this all or nothing kind of approach with collaboration, which is what most tools give you today. We've built it in a way that it can give you that control, both in the sharing, but also in the way that you can cut and slice and view the data itself. And over time, one other thing I haven't talked about is like there is a action part of this equation, which is like, can I, for example, move money or make transfers and stuff? That actually requires the same thing over time. If you want to do automation of your cash flow and things like that, we need to have a really strong foundation of technically of all of that stuff. So security is one part, but also of the robustness of the systems as themselves. And it's really weird, but like for a startup to be coming out and being like, our foundations are really strong, but I don't think you have a choice in money. I think money and health, maybe like this, it's like you can't really build an MVP. Like it's like a hard thing to do because the barrier is so high to like first gain someone's trust and then keep it. And we've just invested a lot in making that happen from the beginning.
Is this self-funded?
Currently it is, yes. So it's self-funded by the three of us currently, yeah.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
So what's the, I'm going to two-part question. What's the next priority and how do you decide what to prioritize next?
Yeah, so as I said, we're in a kind of public beta at the moment. We think about the roadmap for Gather in there's various lenses, but right now, like I would say, we're very much in the build the essentials phase. So what I mean by that is when it comes to money, there are just like certain things that everyone has. So everyone has assets. Everyone has like generally some, either it's a credit card. There's the concept of debts that exist, right? And so in those two buckets, we have all the things that you can connect and add, which we just talked about. Then there's everyone has bills. So there's like some fundamentals we need to build in terms of even just like building, think of it as a daily wealth or a daily money companion. And so we're very much focused on that. It's like something that helps you stay on top of things day to day. Once we're done with that, the next priority is all around the sharing part. Like that's the name partially was, we even chose the name to like bring attention to the fact that it's so fragmented, this sharing concept. So we're going to go there next. And the reason for that, so to answer your second question, is most of our customers are actually like sometimes people see us like they see me and my co-founders. They're like, you guys must be building for the young Gen Z and stuff. We're like, nope, most of our customers, 30s, 40s. And the reason why like Gather resonates with them is because like when you're like early in your career and maybe just an individual, what I mean by that is like you don't have a partner, there's not all of these other people that might need to get involved for various reasons. Things are pretty simple. And you actually don't need a tool, and certainly you don't need a tool that you pay for because like you have time. However, as you start to get into your 30s, you start a family, maybe you buy a home, a couple of things change. Time becomes really precious. And the other thing that changes is now your like the consequences of your actions, if you're like say the household CFO, impact other people. So if you miss a bill that relates to you and you're the only person in the equation, you're like, oh, I missed a bill, I'll cop the payment difference or whatever it is the consequence that happens. If you miss your kid's school payment or something like that, now there's an implication on someone else. Yeah. And so it matters that you're on top of it. And I think that is why the things that we're building are like solving for those people's journey. And to answer your question about how we prioritize what's next is by very deeply staying engaged with them, talking to them. It's like really simple. Maybe I'm like a simple person, but we talk to our customers regularly and often, and then try to just really deeply understand what is happening in their life, what matters to them, and then based on that, which problems that they have still that we haven't solved around wealth and money and try to solve those. Sharing is in that bucket. Like we consistently get this feedback. It's, I want to plan my life with my partner. And to do that, we need a shared visibility of where we stand and then to be able to plan where we want to go. And I don't have that. And they hate the spreadsheet even more than I do. So like, how do we help me solve that? So I think that's why that's next. There's a whole bunch of other things, but I'll just pause there. I hope that makes sense.
No, I get that. Thank you. Yeah. I really like your point about talking to your customer because so often founders and CEOs forget. Anyway, so I'm going to change tack a little bit. You're working from home. What are your daily habits and routines? What's a typical day look like? And how do you credit your daily habits with your success?
Yes. So I think I don't know if this is because I would consider myself a builder. I started this podcast, this interview, even from when we talk of the origin story. So for me, there's two types of days that can happen. One type of day is when there's a lot of conversations, and the other type of day is when there's builder or maker time, which is like deep work is required. But what I try to do is cluster my week in that way, where there's 1 or 2 days where there's all the conversations, and the other days we have to actually focus on building. And when I say building, I don't just mean like engineering, which I do as well, but also that can include marketing, anything that requires deep work, right? Building an audience is still building at the end of the day. So yeah, for typical days, Peter and I and Anil, some days we'll have a conversation about what we're going to do that week, that period, and either it's building or you have those conversations. Now, if we like zoom in a little bit, even before that happens, that's like just work. I have a very consistent meditation practice. And before I actually got into tech, I used to be a yoga teacher and a personal trainer. Those things are what scaffold my day. So I generally start my day with meditation, depending on the day, a short or a long yoga session. And 3 to 4 times a week, I also exercise because those things really help me. I don't know why, but they make me feel like myself. It's like a mindfulness thing. And yeah, I think like those are some of the habits I would say. There's some other ones which are a little bit more spiritual, I guess. I can get into it, but it's not for everyone.
No, that's right.
Just
I think you've laid the foundations there.
yeah,
The theming, I call it theming your days,
right.
or in my case, I work with my clients on the perfect
Mm,
week, which
mm,
often, more than often, will have theme days, particularly
yeah,
to allow
mm,
deep work. Yeah, no, I
mm.
agree. How do you balance your personal life with the demands of running a business?
Yeah, it's such a tough one. I was really thinking about how to answer this question, and honestly, other than being able to say it's a just a consistent act of reflecting, thinking, and trying to assess what really matters in a given time or period or season. Other than that, like I was like, how do I don't know what to say. So for example, I'm getting married this month, and that just means and my family's flying over from India. I have to rebalance my time
Mm.
and make sure that I can give those really important people in my life the presence that I want to give them, and that they're making all of this way to come celebrate my marriage with me. So what that means is, yes, Gather is getting a little bit less time. And so I think like I just see it, all the pursuits that I have as a portfolio of things. And I guess like constantly rebalancing based on what is happening and what sometimes like personal life takes more and other times business takes more. But one of the other habits I do have is like regular self-reflection that helps me stay on top of, okay, like what really matters, right? Because there are also periods and I have rituals with my partner about this. It's this next 3 months really matters for Gather. And actually might be less present in other places because of that. And we have built, having been together for so long, like rituals around being able to communicate transparently about those things. And vice versa. Sometimes I have to have conversations with Peter and Anil about, hey, look, actually, I know we need to give like a lot of depth to this problem in the next end time, but I have some stuff going on in our personal life. And so I need to make some space for that. And that means that we might need to rebalance some things. So I think there's actually a foundation of personal relationships that like scaffolds all of that, but that's my method. I don't know how to like necessarily summarize it, but that's
Yeah,
how I
no,
tend to
no,
do it.
it's
Yeah. Yeah.
it was interesting that you had me a couple of reflections there. In some ways, it's easier for me because I've got two 11-year-old kids. So for me, one of those things I do is up until 9 o'clock in the morning, you'll
Mm,
very rarely get me off for business because I'm getting them
mm,
breakfast, lunch, I
mm.
drive them to school, and then at 3:30 or 3:25, they're home from school. I work from home, and I like to be here to meet them. I don't know if you can hear them. They're having a
I can't hear
fight over
that.
basketball at the moment, but it's theming days, but it's also blocking, time blocking the
That's right.
day that works
Yeah.
well for me.
Yeah.
But I was really thinking about Scott Pape,
Mm,
Barefoot Investor, and he is, and I don't know if you subscribe to him, but you should.
I do.
He put
Long
out,
time follower.
yeah, he put a post out just, I think it was talking about, and it absolutely described me and my wife is phenomenal, but she's just not interested in the big picture of finances. And we have an agreement. I handle that. I tell her what we're doing, and she handles the day to day, and she's phenomenal at it. But Scott Pape put out something yesterday about people like me and my wife, and it's interesting. It absolutely translates in together about what if I dropped dead tomorrow, and how could she, with the grief and everything else that I hope she'd be feeling, how would she cope with all the finances and everything else? As it turns out, there's the file that I've been updating.
Sure.
You can't see, there's a file with wills and everything else
There is
that
a
I've been
file.
updating, and in there, in a safe in here is a which she's got the key to. It's got all the bank account details, like all that stuff's here. So that's all sorted. But one of the things he actually made a point of yesterday was writing a letter that goes in there and updating it to the kids. But he also has a date night once a month where he and his wife just get together, and before dessert, they talk about financial stuff. So I'm a great supporter of him. And at the moment, I've got the kids and I are reading his Barefoot Invest for the Kids as well, because I personally think it's about starting them thinking that way.
Agreed.
Okay, I've lost track of what question I was up to. I apologize. Biggest failures or challenges? Can you give me one of your biggest failures or challenges, and what would you do differently, and what you learnt, and how did you overcome it, perhaps?
So there's a theme that is hopefully coming for the next few bit, but one of the things that it's just stuck with me ever since. Before I started Gather, I used to work as a product executive at Australia's largest comparison site. It's called Finder. And while I was there, so I was there for 7 years, and I led the build for all of the flagship products. I used to lead the internal R&D ventures unit. And I still remember we built a product. This was in the early days of open banking, just before it came and then just after. So we were the first comparison site in Australia to get accredited under open banking. I led that. And we built an MVP, like an early scale product around that, and took it to market in a big way. But the challenge, or the thing that I think I wish I had done differently at the time, was that we didn't stay small enough for long enough. And what I mean by that is we did not spend enough time, in my view, at a small enough scale to build something that like a group of customers really loved, and that we understood why they loved it, who they were, and why it mattered to them. And so we didn't spend enough time, in other words, proving that there was a good product to market fit on a small scale. There's a lot of things that happened, but in the end, we had to sunset that product. It just wasn't working, and the investment required to rework it became too high and too expensive. So I learned a lot of that from that experience. It was like and I'm not talking like thousands of people, like might even have been millions, hundreds of thousands of people had this thing, and then suddenly we had to, for a variety of reasons, we chose to sunset it. And I was largely responsible for all of it. And that happens. I think what the business success rate is like some small N% under 5 or so. I can't remember what it is, but it's small. I think one of the things that I learned was the value of staying small, deliberately small or smaller, till we have just like strong red hot product market fit. And that's before we scale. And that's one of the things we're trying to do with Gather. And that's why we had the invite only phase. Now we're in public beta, still building. And so I think, it's just, I'm almost over indexing towards the fact, or something along the lines, everything big starts small at first. You can't just go from nothing to big. It's just, there is nothing in nature that exists like that. As far as I know, maybe I'm wrong, and you can please correct me. But that's something I've learned the hard way.
Yeah, it's a really interesting, I call it the founder's dilemma. And at what stage do you press the button on scaling, and what does that look like? And I think particularly with AI coming so quickly at us, I think that is getting even more difficult too, because people can come from nowhere now. It's one of my graduated clients, phenomenal business, and he had to make that decision. And it was his business was all about, it's a business called EV Energy, wonderful business, all about heavy vehicle, electric vehicle fleets and managing the fleets. And so EV Energy and Better Fleet. But Dan, at one stage, we had sat down and we had to have that hard conversation that he had to move to America
Mm,
because the market here was just not big enough,
mm,
or was big enough, but yeah, to grow the way he wanted to, he could not be based here. And
mm.
it was a huge family dilemma for them. Yeah, interesting. So I look forward to
Yeah.
seeing when you decide to press that button on scaling.
Yeah, us too. Yeah, still got a fair bit to build, but yeah, I think we'll see. Keep you posted.
Yeah, no, please do. What do you think has been the best advice you've ever received?
Yeah, so I warned you, there's a bit of a theme here. Much like you, Jonathan, I think I'm a little bit of a student of history and particularly the journeys of other founders. I like
Mhm.
find it absolutely fascinating to study other founders that have come before me. One of the founders that I admire the most is this guy called Ed Catmull. Do you know who that is?
I know the name.
He was the founder of Pixar.
All right, of course.
Yes, so he has a memoir. It's called Creativity Inc. I think
I've
it's like
read it.
my most gifted book. I reckon I've personally bought 100 copies.
Yeah.
I give it to everyone. Anytime someone's book, I'm like, here, take this one. So in that, he talks about how most product technology companies, he talks about a lot of things, and particularly it's focused on what made Pixar's culture and practices uniquely set up to make hit after hit. And it wasn't an easy journey at the beginning. There was lots
No.
of, but you've read the book. But one of the things he talks about is how most like big organizations, and his context is a product technology company, are not generally well set up as environments to incubate new ideas,
Yeah.
especially as they mature and once they've matured. He uses the analogy of a plant, from what I can remember, is like when you have a new idea, it's like a sapling. And for a sapling, it's like you need to give it a specific kind of care to help it grow. It's not like a tree yet. So it needs more like nurturing. And so you have to give it the right amount of sunshine and water. You give it too much of either, it dies. So this actually goes back to the previous thing that I was talking about. Like what we did in that example I shared with you is we took a sapling and we put a fire hose on it, and so it died, right? We
Mm.
didn't make that nurturing environment at the beginning to let it go into something that can actually withstand that kind of growth and even to learn that it can grow that big, right? So I think it just took me a long time to recognize that, especially at a big organization, right? Like at Finder, we had distribution. That's what we do. Like we give distribution to other people, especially in the finance services industry. And so we just took the distribution and gave it to this thing. But we just, I think, failed to recognize that you can't just like fire hose a sapling and make it a tree. You have to nurture it at the beginning, and then trees and saplings have very different requirements for growth. Of course, you have to shift, right? That's another art as well, I think, and I can't claim that I know it really well because I haven't necessarily done it enough times. But at the right time, you also have to shift gears, and now it's like you don't want to underwater it, or like maybe you have to give it fertilizer. And
Yep.
because it can become its potential and actually give you fruits. So I think I just really love that analogy, and just really respect Ed for the environment he created at Pixar, even to this day. Like they just, even after having been bought by Disney, they just keep making incredible creative things. And I just know how hard that is to like
Mm. Yep.
consistently produce that level. It's just amazing.
Agreed. And it's for those who don't know, Pixar, obviously Toy Story, I think
Toy Story was the first one,
first
yes.
one. But yeah, one of their key pieces of their growth was Steve Jobs invested, you
That's right.
know, a couple of $1 billion into them to
Yeah, for a long time.
that was the fire hose.
Yeah.
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 And
But
of
he
course,
saw something, right? They had something that he
yeah,
invested in.
that's right.
It wasn't like nothing, and he was not a smart guy.
Yeah,
So
no, exactly right. So you've come from a big company into a small company. What do you reckon is the most
yeah.
important characteristic of a great leadership team? Is there a
Yeah,
single trait?
so go ahead, sir.
Is there a single trait?
Look, I don't know if there is a single trait. I'm still learning, so I'm not going to claim like I know the secrets. One thing that I've found and reflected upon a lot is I think this idea of chemistry matters a lot.
Mm.
So I play a fair amount of sport, and in a sporting team, or if you even play a game, right? If you play like a sports game, most sports game where you like have to put together a team will have some idea of of chemistry. Like I find this quite instructive, where you can put like 11 90+ rated players in a team, but if they have terrible chemistry, generally they will lose to a far inferior team who has much stronger chemistry. And of course, in a game, that's the case. But like I've felt this. I've been in teams where we had the individuals who had invested time to get to know each other and their stories and motivations and beliefs and the place from where you come, the heritage, and and hence clicked, right? Like this click or this idea of the spark or chemistry. And I found myself in those environments. I feel safer to give more, to expect more, to do more. And I think it just goes a really long way. And you can tell, I think, when like a unit is moving with that kind of ease. And I don't know, like you can talk about what you want to attribute that to, but my attribution is to chemistry for a large part. Of course, skill matters and all these things, but the chemistry really matters.
That's interesting. I think you're right to a point.
Yeah.
I think you also alluded to it, though. Hard work is a key part of this.
Yes, 100%.
You know, with my CEO coaching clients and their leadership teams, every 6 months I run an exercise based around, if you haven't read anything of Patrick Lencioni, his book is 5 Dysfunctions of a Leadership Team.
Yes.
Is one of the key tools I use, and trust, accountability, all that. But and you've mentioned then personal stories. Every time I get together with my client teams, we run an exercise about personal stories where we ask 3 questions, and they're always different, about something about their personal life, something about business, something about their life experience, and we round robin it in the room. And it's that personal stories, building that trust it's hard work.
It's definitely hard work.
So anybody that hasn't read, who's listening, that hasn't read 5 Dysfunctions of a Leadership Team by Patrick Lencioni, it's a must read for every leader.
The CTO founder, Joe Waller is his name. He introduced me to that. I think it was a video of Patrick's where he talks about and honestly, it was incredibly transformational in my own journey as well. So I can like +1 to that.
But it's something you and your founders should do too.
Yeah.
If you ever want to spend a couple of hours, give me a scream. I'll take you through it.
Yeah, I love it.
Tools, resources. Okay, we've got Gather. It's obviously a fabulous tool. Books, podcasts, tools that have been game changers for you. Anything you'd recommend?
I have heaps. I'm a bit of an insane learning fiend, as I already self-acknowledged, but I'll give you 2 just to this book. Other than Creativity Inc., I would recommend, I read a lot of memoirs or biographies. Leonardo da Vinci's biography by Walter Isaacson. Stunning book. Yeah. Stunning book. And just like how ahead of his time that individual Leonardo was, how multidisciplinary his practice was. Even like he was a gay man in the 1600s. Like it's just insane, just the balance that. But I don't know, so I love that book, just generally biographies. And then the podcast I would recommend is Founders by David Sandra. It's a really good podcast. This guy, he essentially goes and reads one or many books about a founder. And it's not always just business folks. Like, for example, he's done stuff on James Cameron. So it's actually like big enterprising projects is probably how I would say.
Yep.
And he summarizes it. But like this is what I was alluding to at the top of this conversation, Jonathan. Because he's done so many of them across James Dyson, Steve Jobs, Edwin Land, like all of these people, quite a few women as well. I know I just realized that all men. He's able to synthesize across their journeys. And so I find that really interesting. So generally, you start talking about one individual, but actually, this person also does this. And so there's like this reinforcing of like compounding, like learning across them that I love that he does. So I really love that podcast.
And it's interesting you say that. So it's David who?
Senra, Senra.
It's really interesting. I was talking, Parth, I think to you before we started recording. I experimenting with AI, and I jumped onto Notebook LM the other week, and I fed the URLs for the first 120. So I've done, I think you're episode number 128 of this. I fed the URLs of the first 126 into Notebook LM, and it's a deep learning thinking model, and got it to come up with the 10 key learnings from the 126 interviews. And it's fascinating. And you've highlighted a lot of those learnings again in this interview. I'm going to be releasing that in the next couple of days. So what's the date today? It's the 5th of August. So sometime, I think that's Tuesday. I think this Thursday I'll probably be releasing that. So keep an eye out for that.
Looking forward to it.
because it's really interesting talking to founders and CEOs across the board, across the industry, across male, female. The lessons that keep coming out in these interviews are the same, or the themes, and we'll call it. Any parting words of advice for business owners looking to grow? What would you encourage them to focus on?
I'll say one. I think I already shared this one before. I just have learned the hard way that everything big starts small at first. So just keep going. At the beginning, I know it feels hard and there's doubt and stuff, but everything big starts small at first.
Yeah. And perseverance that's one of the key traits of a successful entrepreneur. Okay, so your sort of daily live beta. Do you have an offer you want to include to the listeners?
Not an offer, but if you're interested in growing your wealth and are sick of wasting your spreadsheets, weekends in spreadsheets, you should give Gather a try, and I'd love to hear feedback. As I said, we're very much early days, but yeah, just looking for folks to try it and give us feedback so we can build something that actually is a daily wealth companion. That's the journey we're on.
And where can they find Gather, Parth?
You can search on the App Store. We're only live on iOS or iPhone at the moment, but coming soon to Android. So just search Gather on the App Store.
Okay. So there's no gather.com or anything like that?
There's gatherwealth.com.au. You can go to the website as well.
Great.
Yeah.
Parth, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jonathan. Great to talk.
Yeah, it was great to speak to you. And as always, I love these conversations, and you've done it again. So thank you.
Thank you.